is don't be afraid to go right and left hand if you have to do. Forward behind myself.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the X-Ring. It is New Year's Eve and it is crazy foggy out here right now at the range, but it got me thinking about an event that I was able to do here recently with Surefire and Kyle Lamb. If you guys don't know who Kyle Lamb is, he is like a true patriot. He is the real deal. He served in the U.S. Army for 21 years, and 15 of those years he was with 1st SFODD, which is Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta. And it was a real pleasure to be able to be invited to that event with Surefire and to be able to be taught by Kyle Lamb. Now, during this event, it was an opportunity for us to use the new Surefire X300 Turbo series of lights, whether it was for the carbine or for the pistol. And I have had a lot of low light training, whether it was for law enforcement or, SWAT or anything like that. I've had a lot of training with it, and I was introduced to some things that I had never ever seen or heard of before, and so I figured this was a good way to share this information with you guys. So what I plan on doing is showing some demonstrations of some of these techniques, but also showing some basic techniques, and then also showcasing that Surefire X300 on a pistol as well as a rifle like a carbine. I'll also cut back to the Royal Range where we did the training in Tennessee. It was an awesome facility. We did a lot of simunitions training and then a lot of shooting, and it was really, really good stuff. So I'm out at the range tonight by myself. It is pitch black outside right now. It is 6:30. And so this is one of those things that I want to pose to you guys, my viewers. All right, in my opinion, I think there's 4 things that every man should have on him at all times. One should be some money in his wallet, right? Not just a debit card, but some actual cash. And this is no specific order. Number 2, he should always have a flashlight on him, always, no matter what. He should also have a knife, no matter what. And then, of course, I think the most important for us, he should also have a pistol of some sort, which I am carrying the 365 right now, because I am sure that most of my viewers do carry concealed. While it might be, 80% of the viewers that I have here, or if you're in a country that doesn't allow it, then I get it. But if you are carrying concealed, you really should have a flashlight on you at all times, if not a flashlight and a weapons light, okay? They can serve 2 different functions, and I think it's best to have both. I do not carry a concealed firearm without a weapons light, no matter what. But I know a lot of people won't do that because it is hard to find holsters for certain flashlights and certain firearms. However, if you look at the FBI, the UCR statistics that they print out every year, virtually 50% of all deadly force encounters or crimes, and you got to be careful with this because a lot of crimes could be DUIs or DWIs depending on what state you live in, and they won't reflect what it really is with regards to crime. But most of your crime is going to happen, your violent crime is going to happen somewhere between the hours of 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Now it's 7 o'clock right now and it is pitch black. So we do all of this training during the day, but how much training do we actually do at night? How much training do we do with a flashlight? And if you can't answer a lot, or I've done some, then this is going to be a great video for you. There is no way this is going to be a short video. This is actually going to be a long video with a lot of great content that I hope to be able to share. And I hope this video does really well because it's going to take a long time to film it, especially the shows of some of the techniques and some of the positions. So go ahead and set those clocks because it's going to be at least 30 minutes to get this video done, so stick around. Okay, so for me personally, I always carry some type of handheld flashlight. My flashlight of choice is going to be the Surefire Stiletto Pro. I've been carrying this for over a year now because in the past I was always carrying something round or something like this, which either of them are good, just make sure it suits your needs. Now, I'm not going to get into the differences of candela, lumens, or lux. That's something you can look up yourself, but it just seems like with all the flashlights out there, everybody's into this lumen war. You know, you see your buddy and it's like, man, this thing's got 1,000 lumens. And the other guy's, well, this one's got 1,200 lumens. Lumens does not tell the complete story, okay? You can have high candela and low lumens and have more of what we call a spotlight beam. You know, I know there's some hybrid beams and everything else, but the easiest way to think about this is, do you have a floodlight where you can kind of see everything but it can't penetrate very deeply? Or do you have a lot of candela, which is typically going to be more focused and more like a spotlight? For shooting, especially if there's any type of distance or if you're trying to look into a vehicle, you might want more candela as opposed to more lumens. And I'll give you a representation of that here in just a minute. All right, so behind me here at about 25 yards is a target. We're going to take the Surefire Stiletto Pro. Let's look and see what kind of pattern we have. And you guys can barely make that out, but you can probably see that orange target there. You see it on the outlier? Okay, so that's at 25 yards. The reason you need a light is you need to be able to positively identify your target. Is this friend or is it foe? Number two, you need to be able to see that target clearly enough to see what they have in their hands. Are they a threat to you or not? Here's the EDC light. Let's see what it looks like. And you'll see it's more of a focused pattern, a more narrow beam, if you will. So now let me take something like the Surefire X300 that is going to be mounted on the rifle, and let's see what it looks like. Now this is going to be, and I want to be very specific on these, this is the KFT-A DFT Surefire. So this would be something that's mounted on a carbine or weapon light. Let's see what this looks like. And boom, you see that? That's more of, you can call it a laser beam if you want, but I can really see that target, especially at distance. I can also penetrate tinted windows and whatnot. So you've got to think about which one works best for you. Now, one of the downsides of a spotlight that I've heard people say is, well, it's going to be too focused indoors. And shooting this light indoors, it was not an issue whatsoever. I was able to see my target. I was able to illuminate everything around it. So let's talk about some handheld pistol techniques first. All right, so we're going to pretend that we don't have a weapon light on here. Right now, we're just going to talk about a feature of just being a handheld light. And so I'm going to hold this in my hand. Here are a couple of the techniques that you want to practice on. And these are kind of common accepted techniques. Number one is the Harry's. So let's say you present your pistol. You're going to take your support hand and go underneath the barrel. It is easy to go in front. You don't want to do that. So what you're going to do is just bring it underneath, illuminating your target, and you should be able to fire without any issues. And we're going to do live fire here in just a second. You should be able to see it. You should be able to hear it. So that is the Harry's technique. You illuminate, you shoot, you turn your light off. Light discipline is everything. The next one is the neck index, and what it does is now it gives you the ability to illuminate your target. You're more steady here without an arm getting too much fatigue. But the problem is they say that people will shoot at a flashlight or a light source and your face is going to be here. There is an advantage to this though. The advantage is if you're shooting iron sights and you don't have, let's say, a dot, or you don't have night sights or anything, it gives you the ability to illuminate your irons. So you guys can see that. So when I'm actually on neck index, I can see my irons pretty clearly, and it could wash them out. So you've got to be careful that you don't wash it out with too much light, because then all you're going to see is the back of the pistol. The other technique is the FBI technique, and that is going to be extending the arm out and then flashing it. And this will work good on a left side approach around a vehicle because you can actually illuminate. But if you're on the right side, now you've got to do something like this or something funky, or you're going to have to switch hands. But then there's another technique. It is actually called the Surefire technique. There's some other names for it. Some people call it the syringe technique or the cigar technique, and typically you're going to want like some type of combat ring on here. More on that in just a moment. But you're basically going to hold it in your fingers, and you're just going to use the fat part of the meat of your hand. And what you can do is shoot like this with support. So you guys can see this. Now, more on that technique in just a moment. Kyle taught us some stuff that I've never heard of, and it worked very, very well. I'm going to show you some close-ups of that. So one of the things Kyle taught us is when you're holding the pistol like this, because you already have a natural circle, what you can do is you can place that circle over that knuckle and shoot just like this. It actually worked very well because now we're giving this support. We're not underneath the pistol or not giving it the support we need. So basically just place it in there and you can just index it like that while you're shooting. It works very well. I want you guys to see this as best you can. I'm not going to illuminate the light. So regardless of which technique you're using, you need to understand how you can do a reload by having both hands occupied, whether it's FBI, neck, Harry's, or the syringe technique, it doesn't matter. So in law enforcement, what they teach you is, let's say you're shooting the Harry's and you've got to do a reload. They actually teach you to stow the light under the arm, do your reload, retrieve your light, and now you're back in business. And it works very, very well, but you need to know a way to do that, otherwise you can't stow the light. So one of the coolest things that Kyle showed us, and I know it's very, very basic, guys, but it's so simple, it just made a ton of sense. If you're using a round light like this, you can actually use a piece of bungee or 550 cord, whatever, but basically an elastic cord, and it doesn't get in the way. You can still manipulate the light any way you want. But when you pull it out of your pocket, all you have to do is slide some fingers under there, and then now you have a way of using your light, whether it's Harry's, FBI, I can let go of my hand. I can still manipulate my magazine, and it's one less motion of storing this than I need to do. Okay, so something very simple like that goes a long ways, and it's something I had never heard of. It's pretty ingenious when you think about it. The other thing that he told us was, you know, not a lot of your flashlights, especially your round ones, are going to have the combat ring or the rubber ring to assist with the syringe technique or cigar or whatever you'd like to call it, or Rogers. What you can do is you can take duct tape and do strips and build it up, and that will give you resistance so that you're pulling up against that duct tape, but it also gives you a way of always having duct tape available, whether it's for cuts or injuries or anything like that. Now, I figured the next question I would get is, Ray, you carry a stiletto. How does that work? Well, Surefire has already thought that out. You have different modes on the top that I can illuminate from low, medium to high. But on the back side, I have a full illumination, and I can still use that syringe technique, just like this. Works very well. I actually used it in the entire class when I was there at Surefire. This is the one that I used when we were doing handheld lights. And it's really bright, but what you can do is you just grip it like you normally would a round light, and this right here just lines right up on the back side of the fat of the palm, and I'm able to take those shots. So very, very simple, very easy to use for momentary on. So let's go ahead and take a look at what all of these techniques look like. We're going to shoot that target and we'll see how it goes. All right, guys, so I had already assumed this was going to be one of the hardest videos I've ever shot in my life. I do have a target down there at 25 yards, but we have a ton of fog out. You guys can see how much fog there is. So I'm going to try to show you this. The first technique we're going to use once we pull it out of the pocket is we're going to go for the Harry's technique, which is going to be underneath just like this. So it would basically look like this, guys, basically underneath. I'm going to push with my thumb, and then I'm going to line up my target, and then that's an impact. As soon as you fire, the light needs to go off. The next one's going to be the FBI technique out here, and we're going to illuminate the target, and that's an impact. The next one is going to be the neck index, okay? Now I want you to see how much light comes out here with me trying to illuminate that. I'm actually having a hard time here with this to be able to see it. It's somewhere in there. And then the next one's going to be the syringe technique. So we're going to use the one that Kyle taught us by going into the circle and supporting along the left side. And this should be pretty easy, just like that. So light discipline is everything, being able to get it on, turn it off, and only use it during the course of fire. So those are your 4 primary handheld flashlight techniques. All right, so next what we're going to talk about are weapons lights and why one can make a difference over another. I've already told you the conditions are horrible out here. It's actually drizzling. We have a little bit of fog that's coming out. Now, guys, this would be like an X300, okay? This specifically is the XH30, and so this is going to have more of a flood/hybrid type beam. And so if I use this weapon light on this target, I want you guys to see right here what we see. I can barely see that target. I don't know if you guys can. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this around so you can see it. And I can barely make it out, but I could make the shot. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to turn this light off, which more on that in just a minute, and we're going to compare it to the X300 Turbo. The X300 Turbo has more of a spot beam, and I want you guys to notice this difference. Ready? Look at that. I have no problem hitting that target. You guys can see it's almost like a focused laser. And that is definitely going to give me further distance to be able to see that target and make better shots on it. I'm going to lose it in something like this with more of a flood pattern than a spot, if you will. And like I said, I'm just trying to break it down into lay terms on how that'll work. You still have the momentary on where you can just press forwards and you have a light, or you can push down and you have a light, or you can lift up and you have a light. So you have a bunch of different options here. You can manipulate it from the other side by pressing down with the thumb if you wanted to, but then you've got to turn it off, and so you can use both hands if you needed to. But the problem is when you are shooting a firearm with a weapon light, if we want to just illuminate quickly, and then what we're going to do is then fire, now we need to turn it off. Well, lifting a light like that with a lever is really tough. What's going to happen is you're going to skip the off position and go all the way to the constant on again. So it's going to be very tough to just illuminate, fire, and then turn it off. Okay, so there we go. And that's what it usually looks like. And you just want to get that light on, fire, and get it off as quickly as you can so that you can change positions. Now, there are some different techniques. One of the ones that I've used for years is to use my thumb from the support hand. And when I need to shoot, what I will do is I will identify, fire, and then off. So it's pretty quick, okay? So having that push forwards is great, but the problem is you got to keep pushing forwards with it. So Kyle introduced us to this thing called a DG switch. And these are specific to the model pistols that you have. It simply replaces the back door, the battery compartment door, and it's basically a pressure switch right here. Now, this is not something you can turn on very easily, okay? You've actually got to squeeze it. It's very forceful. You're still going to have plenty control of the weapon, but you're going to use your middle finger, and literally, we're going to check this again, literally it's punch out, identify, it lights on, fire off. It's that quick, and this is the best thing, is now if I have to go to support hand, I can use it as well. The DG switch was actually a request by DG, being DevGru. If you don't know what DevGru is, check it out. So this is a request from them, and this is an unbelievable switch. It is an awesome upgrade for any of your Surefire lights if you have them. So let me give you some demonstrations of this and how it'll work, and then we'll go over some other techniques. So having this DG switch is going to give me the ability to be able to just immediately punch on target, fire at my target, and then light off. It's almost instant. All right, so now it's time for the test. I'm going to turn this light off, and I want you to tell me which one is the turbo and which one is not. So here we go. You guys can see the difference completely. And I still have enough of a beam pattern on that outer circle to be able to still make out stuff. Now the turbo might not be right for you. Maybe you're not wanting something as focused, but just to give you an example, this XH30 has about 11,500 candela with 1,000 lumens. Okay, 1,000 lumens, 11,500 candela. The X300 Turbo has 650 lumens, but it has a whopping 65,000 candela. So you can see the difference. Now, if it was a little clearer out here, I was actually going to show you some carbine stuff, because with the carbine, you can reach out into the beyond 100-yard range. All right, so here's another great example. I don't live in the city. I live out in the middle of the country, and if I hear something, I want to be able to see as far as I can possibly see, to be able to see things that are further away as well as close. If I had something that was high lumens with low candela, like this one right here, I heard something out there. Let's see what you guys can make out. Ready? What do you make out? Can you make out anything? Look hard. So you can definitely see it with this camera perspective, but with my naked eye, it's really tough to make out that trailer. We're gonna now switch over to the Turbo series, and you're gonna be able to see that trailer plain as day. I can actually see if there was somebody in that window, whereas with this one, I can barely even see that there is a window there. I can make out the frame and a tire, but that's about it. So some things to keep in mind is that lumens are not everything. It's how that beam pattern works for you. Let's go ahead and do a little more shooting. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I am going to try to find that target because we're at about 30 yards right now. I'm gonna shoot strong hand, I'm gonna turn the light on, then I'm gonna try to turn it off, and then I'm gonna go support hand, turn it on, turn it off. We'll see what this looks like. Remember, I'm still searching for that target because it's so foggy. Here we go. All right. Strong hand only. Light goes on. There it is. Now I'm going to turn the light off. I'm going to switch to support hand. And my strength in my left hand is not as good, and now I've got to turn it off. Guys, it really did take me that long to turn it off because I was trying to manipulate that switch with my left hand only. And now let's try this DG switch. DG switch, strong hand only. Here we go. We're going to go support hand. But it's instant. It's like a light show. You see that? So I'm highly recommending this, and then you can see from my applications how well this X300 Turbo works. Here's another good way to look at it, guys. Spot, hybrid, and laser beam turbo. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that overview of flashlight techniques. I think that's actually enough for tonight. I'm going to cut it short because of the visibility, because of the fog. But I will continue this with the X300 with the rifle light on a carbine and show you at 100 and 200 yards or even 50 yards. Because when you get into that 200-yard range, you got to know that it's faux because you really are going to have a hard time identifying that with just a dot or something. Hopefully you guys learned a lot from this video, and it's something that you can always practice. You can practice at night, you can practice dry firing. Of course, make sure that your weapon is clear, or some ranges will actually allow you to do this. If you ever have an opportunity to shoot a low light match, I highly urge you to do it. You will learn so much, I can't even tell you. Everything from the powder that burns and you sidestepping to get out of the way of that smoke so it's not illuminating, kind of like it is with this fog tonight, to being able to control and understand light management, because we don't want to backlight our friends and we definitely don't want to backlight ourselves because even behind a post or something, if I inadvertently turn that light on, you're going to see me as plain as day. I'll give you an example of that very quickly. So if I am behind this post, this would be proper, guys. I pop out and that's it. You only see me for just a moment, okay? And I'm blinding my adversary. But if I turn this light on, or if I shoot and then my light is still on, what do you see? I can backlight myself. You can see me and everything else just because of the angle, and we don't want to do that. That is bad news, okay? So you don't want to backlight yourself off of a reflective target. And that's why we only turn these things on as little as we need to. So hopefully you learned a lot. I'm going to slowly incorporate more of that footage with Kyle when I get into some of the shooting techniques that we covered. I think it's some really good information if you're looking to better yourself and your nighttime skills. I think it's going to be a great series. So stick around. I hope you guys have a happy new year, or had a happy new year, and we will talk to you soon. Like, share, and subscribe, guys. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I know only 20% of you are actually subscribed to the channel, so just go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.